Dead men tell no tales, but their ships speak volumes. Welcome to the Cursed Compass, where we explore the darkest maritime mysteries. In March 1918, a 542-foot steel vessel carrying 306 personnel and nearly 11,000 tons of cargo simply vanished into the Atlantic Ocean. The ship was the USS Cyclops. Its disappearance remains the single largest non-combat loss of life in the history of the United States Navy. Because it went missing on a route from the Caribbean to Baltimore, the disaster is almost exclusively grouped into the lore of the Bermuda Triangle. But supernatural theories only obscure the physical evidence. A compounding cascade of mechanical, operational, and structural failures systematically destroyed the vessel. To understand why the ship sank, we have to look at how it was built. The Cyclops was a Proteus-class collier, engineered to execute exactly one highly specific job. That job was transporting huge volumes of coal to power the warships of the early 20th century American fleet. At 542 feet long and 65 feet wide, the hull featured cavernous cargo holds supported by heavy longitudinal I-beams. When loaded with low-density coal, 10,000 tons fills the holds completely. The weight distributes evenly, providing a highly stable center of gravity. Under these specific parameters, the Cyclops was a remarkably capable vessel. It spent years successfully navigating rough deployments from the Baltic Sea to the coast of Mexico. The Cyclops was a finely tuned machine for hauling coal. To bring it down required a total disruption of the baseline parameters it was designed to operate within. When America entered World War I, supply demands shifted. For its final mission, the Navy reassigned the Cyclops to haul 10,800 tons of manganese ore from Rio de Janeiro to Baltimore. Manganese ore is vastly denser than coal. 10,000 tons of ore does not fill the holds. Instead, the exact same weight occupies only a fraction of the space, creating a low, heavily concentrated mass deep inside the belly of the ship. Loading an unfamiliar cargo requires careful mathematical distribution. But the ship was commanded by an erratic captain, George Worley, who reportedly assigned completely inexperienced officers to oversee the loading of the ore in Brazil. Weeks into the voyage, the Cyclops made an unscheduled stop in Barbados. A telegram sent by the American consul there, Charles Livingston, documented a series of alarming details. The ship was limping. It had a cracked engine cylinder and operating on a single engine. It also required an emergency influx of fresh provisions for the crew. The most severe warning sign was physical. Observers noted that the ship's waterline was above the plimsoll line. The Cyclops was sitting dangerously low in the water, indicating it was heavily overloaded. Despite these handicaps, the Cyclops departed Barbados on March 4th. Its final transmission read simply, "Weather fair, all well." The vessel steaming out into the Atlantic was carrying an intensely concentrated load, drafting lower than its design permitted, and lacking the engine power to properly maneuver in rough weather. Given that it was 1918, the immediate public assumption was that the Cyclops had been intercepted and sunk by an Imperial German Navy U-boat. Post-war analyses of German naval records proved there were no U-boats operating anywhere near that region of the Atlantic at the time, and no submarine commander ever claimed the kill. A single torpedo also does not cleanly erase a fully loaded 19,000-ton steel ship from existence. A violent explosion leaves an unmistakable footprint on the surface of the ocean: oil slicks, splintered wood, cork life preservers, and floating debris. Search vessels covering the route found absolutely nothing. Other theories pointed inward, suggesting that Captain Worley's abrasive leadership and rumored pro-German sympathies led to a violent mutiny or intentional sabotage by the crew. While a mutiny might explain a deviation in course, no internal conflict accounts for a massive vessel sinking so rapidly that no distress signal is sent and no wreckage is ever recovered. Modern investigations point directly to the cargo. Empty space in the holds allowed deck water to breach the hatches, soaking the dense ore. Wet manganese becomes a viscous slurry. If the ship rolled, this massive liquid weight violently shifted, pinning the ship into a severe list. To correct a severe roll, a captain needs full power to turn the bow back into the waves. Operating on only one engine, the Cyclops lacked the thrust to recover its balance. Beneath the shifting cargo, the physical skeleton of the ship was likely compromised. Rear Admiral George Van Deurs hypothesized that years of hauling high-sulfur coal created a highly corrosive environment inside the holds, quietly eating away at the crucial longitudinal I-beams. These vulnerabilities collided with historical weather data. Records confirm a localized, violent storm struck the Virginia Capes area, generating 30 to 40-knot winds and towering seas. In seas that rough, a ship the length of the Cyclops will inevitably straddle two wave crests at once. The bow and stern are pushed upward, leaving the middle entirely unsupported over the trough. Weighted down by thousands of tons of dense ore, the corroded I-beams reached their absolute stress limit. They buckled and snapped, tearing the hull in half. When a steel freighter breaks its back and splits open while carrying a dense metallic slurry, the two halves plummet to the ocean floor in a matter of minutes. There is no time to launch lifeboats, no time to wire an SOS, and no buoyant air pockets left to bring debris to the surface. This structural failure hypothesis is backed by a damning piece of historical precedent involving the Cyclops' own sister ships. 23 years later, during World War II, the USS Proteus vanished without a trace in the Caribbean Sea. Just weeks after that, another sister ship, the USS Nereus, disappeared along the exact same route, leaving zero wreckage behind. This is a modern bulk carrier loading bauxite. When the Proteus and the Nereus vanished in 1941, both were carrying heavy loads of this exact material, a dense metallic ore with physical properties nearly identical to the manganese carried by the Cyclops. The design of the Proteus-class colliers made them highly effective at hauling distributed volumes of coal. But loading their holds with heavy, concentrated metallic ore exposed a fatal architectural flaw, turning rough seas into a guaranteed structural failure. The Swiss cheese model of maritime catastrophe occurs when multiple distinct flaws, a cracked engine, an inexperienced crew, deep corrosion, and an incompatible payload, align simultaneously. The squall off the Virginia Capes was simply the final load applied to a system that was already deeply compromised on multiple engineering levels. Because the collapse would have happened rapidly in the dark of night, the majority of the crew sleeping below deck would have had zero warning as the ocean rushed in. If the ship went down in the Puerto Rico Trench, as many maritime historians suspect, the wreckage rests nearly 5 miles beneath the surface, far beyond the reach of recovery efforts. The USS Cyclops is a permanent testament to the unforgiving physics of the ocean, and exactly what happens when we push the limits of engineering past the point of no return.